Okay, so let's get started. Today we're gonna do a really cool drawing of Wolverine for my classic Marvel superheroes series. I haven't done any live demos for this series yet, but I thought that'd be really fun because it's not a complex study, but it's really fun to see in real time and to work together to draw it. So that's what we're gonna do today. So I've selected a reference drawing, and I ended up going with an Arthur Adams drawing. Originally I wanted to go with a David Cockrum drawing because it's older, and I love David Cockrum's art. It's super cool, and at first I wanted to go older school, but honestly I just love Arthur Adams' art, and I love Arthur Adams' Wolverine. I love how badass he is, and he's super dynamic. I think Art Adams really hit the nail on the head with his drawings of Wolverine, so I went with him today. I'm going to flip you and show you my reference. So this is my Arthur Adams reference photo, and that's what we're going to be working with today. So you can see that Wolverine is advancing, he's coming forward, so there's a good deal of foreshortening here. He's charging almost completely straight forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by setting up an axis for his body. And then we're going to block in his body parts and refine the outline after. So I'm going to take you for a ride, and I'm going to put you up above my workstation so you can see what's going on. Hang on tightly. There we go. That's nice and visible. Alright, so how we're going to start this, I'm going to set up a nice vertical axis for planning this composition. Now, I'm not using a ruler for this. There's absolutely no reason, as far as I can see, to use a straight edge. You're just giving yourself a guideline. If you want it to be perfectly straight, go nuts, but I'm not going to. So, I give myself a vertical axis because he's pretty much square on coming at you, right? So, this is going to be the vertical axis of his body. And I'm going to start in roughing his figure with his head, because that's right at the top. It's a ball, and it's right in the center. So I'm going to start, like I start most superhero drawings like this. I'm going to start with a ball with a big square lantern jaw, because, Marvel superheroes, most of them have huge-ass lantern jaws, so. Okay, so that's his head. Now, I want to rough in his torso here, and because his head is coming forward, I can see that his back is pretty much level with the top of his head. So I'm going to rough that in like that. His torso comes down here. You can see his chest here. So there we go. Now, you can pretty much, because of his position, you can see his chest here, but you can't see like any of his midsection at all. That is totally invisible. You can just see his chest and his front leg coming forward, his back leg going back. So we're going to make the form of the advancing leg. And we're using the axis here because his balance is pretty much right there in the middle. So we're going to make a big oval here for his advancing leg. I'm going to check the size because I've noticed that the proportion from the tip of his head to the bottom of his visible torso there is about the same as the length of his thigh to the bottom of his knee. So I've made that just a little bit long, so shorten that a bit. But that's pretty much going to do it. You can notice that I'm only erasing a couple of lines. I'm not erasing all my guidelines right now. I'm just making sure that I've got the basics. That we can go wild erasing more later. So we're going to do his other leg, and his other thigh has got to be really ultra short, super short and stubby, because it's going back, it's retreating, right? So it's going to look a lot smaller than that leg that's coming forward. That leg that's coming forward, you can see his knee here, his kneecap square in front. The other leg, the knee is totally hidden because his leg is bent and going backwards. You can't see his foot either. So make sure that that left leg is much smaller than the right leg. It's receding. And now let's go in for his arms. So I'm just gonna kind of give myself a shape here. Got a big shoulder on each side. Make sure it's not too egg-shaped. There we go. Now, each arm comes down by the side of his body. I'm just going to give myself a bit of a guideline like this. For the curvature of each arm, because they're pretty much the same, but one, the right, is just a little bit extended from his body a little bit. There. On the advancing side, you can see. So his elbow is about there. And on the other side, too. You're looking at the insides of his arms, so you can't really see his elbow, but I'm just marking it so I know where everything is supposed to be. His wrist is about there again. Block it off. You can use like a square or a rectangle for his wrist if you want more, because while it's a joint, it is pretty boxy, so it can be easier to work with your drawing. But that's really up to you. It's a little malposition. Oh, thank you so much for that. That one's going to be a little higher up that wrist. And then I'm just going to make a big circle boxing mitt for each hand for now. Make sure they're in the right place, but I'm not farting around with drawing any fingers. Draw a big forearm on each side. And a big bicep. Another one over here. Now we're starting to get the form of his body. I'm gonna put his foreleg in here. Again, the shape is a little weird because since his knee is advancing, his foot is back, his foreleg is greatly shortened. But if it's not shortened enough, it's totally gonna mess up the perspective. So don't worry about that foreleg looking stumpy. It's okay. It's all gonna come out in the wash. And I pretty much want the line of that foot to come in line with my axis here. So if I'm gonna do that, I want my foot to start about here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we can start outlining. I'm gonna take away some of my guidelines here, so it's a little bit less messy, and so I can see things a little better, and I got less to erase later. Just a little housekeeping in my drawing here. There, I would clean that up a little bit. I'm gonna start from the top. I'm going to start with his shoulder right here. His bicep comes around this side. I made his arm a little bit too long, so I'm gonna his hand up a little bit there. It's not a direct science. You can see I didn't make a grid here. We're just practicing. Okay. That's where his hand is gonna be. Honestly, I'm gonna worry about drawing in his hands after. I kind of want to make sure that everything's right in his body first. And I'm worrying mostly about the outside silhouette before I start fleshing in the inside, because that's gonna let me know if everything's in the right place. It's gonna give me a good idea of the negative space. So I know his leg has got to come like this. His knee. Down to square his knee off a little bit there. There we go, that's much better. Okay, so I'll take this up to his torso here, look underneath his armpit. Shoulder's a little small. Beef that up a little bit. Oh, much better. Much better. Okay. Got that nice big Wolverine lantern jaw a little bit. His face, we're gonna see the tip of his nose coming down here. He's got kind of a snarl on him. I'll make his mask cut at an angle up the side of his face, like follow his cheekbone almost, from his nose, from the tip of his nose to the edge of his cheekbone. And then his mask has got these weird ass wing things that come up with this. Bridge of his nose. Be bold when you make that line, like Zorro. Better that it's in the wrong place, but it's done strongly. Next time it'll be perfect. It's practice, right? So. You can see his cheekbones here, and the side of his mask cuts down like this. So it gives you a better profile of the side of his face. He's got a grimace on, so actually I've made his face a little too short. Bring that down so I got room for that big Wolverine grimace. Don't worry about making the shape of his mouth irregular. He'll just look more mad. Don't forget about the line of his teeth touching, because that really makes it look like he's baring his teeth. That's a big difference. Anybody else feel like my nose is a little too high up? Bring it down. So he's got his eyes here that are just white. Oh, that's too weird an angle. It's gonna look bizarre. Fix that up a little bit. His eyes should be an angle like that. There we go. Much better. Make the wings of his mask come down to meet the bridge of his nose. He's got quite a frown on. Wolverine is a frowny dude. That's one of the reasons we like him, because he's so intense. Okay. Take down his shoulders here. He's got like the black center of his costume here ends in like a triangular cap on each shoulder. So that's what I'm drawing in here. This shoulder cap on that side, and another one on this side. Some coffee. Coming down his arm. I'm just including the lines that I feel are like really ultra important, because honestly this drawing that I'm following is pretty nicely refined and complex. It's very neat, but I don't want to make a super specific complex drawing like that. Honestly, I love the composition of this image, but I'm not making a really polished drawing like that, so I'm only gonna follow it to a certain point. I'm practicing, and also I want it to look rough and sketchy. Okay, so let's come down to this hand. It's hand time. His hand is in a fist, so it's pretty much in the shape of a circle here. His curled fingers come down like that. That's the line of his knuckles. This thumb. This comes in like this. One finger here hidden by his thumb. Two. Three, four. And so we've got. I'm just gonna rough in the blades so I don't mess them up. I want them to come to about here. They're pretty long. That one. Angle right. Looks pretty good. Now that I kind of know where I want my claws to go, start drawing them in. Nice bold line. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but you know what I mean. I'm not looking for perfection here, so good is perfect, right? Let's do his other hand right away. That sounds fun. Again, same game on the other side. His hand looks very, very similar. His big chubby thumb, hiding his first finger. Looking pretty intense already. Roughen his claws on this side. Again, just with a nice light line before I know exactly where I want everything to go. It's hard to see where out of his hand it's coming from, like if it's coming from between his knuckles or the back of his knuckles because of the angle, so don't worry too much about agonizing over his claws coming from the right place on his hand. Don't think too much about it. Okay, I like that. I think that's pretty good. Let's draw that in. Glove here. Coming up his arm, a little bit of definition, big beefy bicep. Shoulder. I'm gonna shade this in just a minute, but I'm not going to do any really specific shading. I'm gonna do like scribble shading. That's my favorite kind of shading, especially for a drawing like this. It makes it really nice and rough. I like the cross-hatch nature of the shading in a drawing like this, as opposed to a nice even fade. I don't do any kind of blending really. I'm just gonna leave it really nice his collarbone here. So that's in shadow there. All this around his head is essentially in the shadow of his head. Down to his kneecap. I want to give a little bit of definition on the side of his knee there, and the other side too. And again, I'll shade that in a little bit now. His boot has got these weird, big wings on them, like Thor's old boots did. You know, comes up like that. Cool. He's also got a stripe in the middle of his boot. Really, I mean, when it comes to his costume, you can really just let your imagination go wild, because his costume has totally changed over the years, just like everybody else's, so, you know. It doesn't have to be an exact copy of any of them. Again, you can't see his knee on this side, so don't even worry about it. It's hidden in shadow. It's in the past. Okay, so it looks like I'm almost ready to shade, but his face looks kind of messed up. I think his eyes are a little close together, so let's fix them. For the size of his head, I guess. There's a little proportion. A little better. Good enough. Good enough. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and erase more of my guidelines. Again, I'm not trying to erase all of them. Not trying to make it perfect. I'm just going and taking away some guides that I don't need anymore before I go ahead and start hatching in my shading. I think that's pretty much good. Cool. So I'm going to start from the top so I don't get my hand on my work. Often I'll protect my work with, I'll use a card or something to protect my work with my hand, but today I'm not using anything, just going old school, drawing from the top to the bottom so I don't get my hand in my work, and that's the absolute simplest, no tools way, you know? So I'm starting to hatch in my shading. Be careful not to go over his nose, because that's still his, the yellow part of his suit. Which is part of what makes his grimace look so grimacy, because you can really see his snarl, because his nose is a different color. Really enhances the snarl. Okay. Working down to his shoulders. Again, remember, all this in between his collarbone and his head is in shadow, so we're gonna hatch all that in. His shoulder, got a little bit of a shadow coming down there. For your drawing, if you want to shade, if you want to blend, just go for it. But this drawing I'm working on right now, I want it to have a nice sketchy quality. And because I mostly paint, I don't do a lot of just drawing anymore. I enjoy making sketchy drawings like this that have absolutely no blended qualities to them, you know what I mean? Now, because the center of his suit is black, and because this part of his body is also in shadow, pretty much his entire torso in here is dark. There's just a little bit of highlight, so I'm just going to kind of draw in where I don't want to traipse over my highlights. There's a bit of a shadow inside the wings on his left boot going back there, so I'm just gonna patch that in lightly. Just a little bit on this receding ledge. Now his kneecap, because his leg is bent, his foreleg and foot, or his foreleg at least, is in shadow. So don't be afraid to go big and bold with the darks in here. I think especially with a drawing like this, you're much better to overdo your darks a little bit than to leave them too pale. His boot is black. Go ahead and shade that in. Here, so I'm not gonna shade that in. I'm just gonna give myself a little guide so I don't wander over it. There So we're almost done here, and I'm also almost out of time. So I'm going to just do a little bit more shading in here. Underneath his fingers, because they're in shadow too. And on that side. In his palm, there's some shadow as well. He's clenching his fist. It's going good. Yeah. You like my Wolverine drawing?
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
Cool. Not beautiful.
Not as beautiful as it could be. Cool.
You could have done it in pink and purple.
That would have been beautiful, absolutely. Maybe the next Wolverine I draw will be pink and purple. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be.
Do Wolverine like Care Bear's version.
Yeah. Sure, I may not like pink and purple, but I was just giving you an idea.
Mm-hmm. I like pink and purple. Not a lot of colors I don't like. Okay. Just want to say, I think I'm gonna leave my Wolverine at that. Again, not super polished, but an awesome study that I had a whole lot of fun making. And you know, not every drawing has to be extremely polished. It's good to make studies, it's good to make sketches. It's good to make mistakes. Like, my Wolverine's face is still kind of messed up, but you know what? I'm not going to go back and try and fix it anymore. I like that he looks gnarly, and the proportions may not be absolutely perfect, but that's okay. All part of the practice. I'm just darkening up some of my blacker areas here. Awesome, he's looking really badass. Okay, Wolverine fans, I'm gonna put my name on that and call it a drawing. Thanks so much for drawing with me, and I hope you dug it. We're gonna draw some other stuff really soon, so it's gonna be a whole ton of fun. See you guys next time.